The Guilt Trip by Duane Penmanship. Chapter 1: The Night That Won't Die. I can still taste the smoke from that night. Sweet at first, then bitter, like it knew what it was about to do to me. To her. Brianna sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, laughing so hard she could barely breathe, her eyeliner smudged into dark crescents under her eyes. She was only 17, 2 years younger than me, but she already had that wild sparkle, the kind that made you think she'd live forever. "You sure about this?" she asked, holding the little bag like it was full of magic instead of poison. "Don't be a chicken," I said, even though my stomach twisted. I wanted to be the cool cousin, the one who showed her things no one else would. Maybe I wanted her to think I was fearless. Or maybe I was just stupid. We smoked, then we laughed. We sprawled out on the carpet, watching the ceiling spin. My heart pounded in my ears. I remember closing my eyes, thinking we'd wake up in the morning and raid the fridge like always. But I woke up to silence. At first, I thought she was still sleeping. Her skin was pale, her lips cracked. I shook her. Nothing. Then the door slammed open so hard the walls shook. My aunt's scream sliced the air, high sharp, like glass breaking. She had a phone in her hand, shouting into it, "No. Not my baby. No." I sat there, frozen, while she dropped to her knees beside Brianna, shaking her, sobbing, cursing me between gasps. The paramedics came, but it was already too late. By sunset, the whispers had started. Tiff gave it to her. Tiff killed her. That girl's a damn curse. I didn't argue. How could I? It's been 4 years, and I still hear that scream when I close my eyes. I still see my aunt's face when she looked at me, like I was lower than dirt. I've done plenty of stupid things since then, but that night is the one that never lets me go. The one that sticks to my skin no matter how much I try to scrub it off. The one that made me who I am now. Chapter 2: Funeral in the Cold. It was supposed to be spring, but that day felt like winter. The church smelled like lilies and old wood, and the air was thick with perfume and judgment. I sat in the back pew, because that's where the family wanted me, if they even wanted me there at all. Aunt Sherry's friends kept glancing over their shoulders at me, whispering behind gloved hands. The look said more than the words. That's her. The one who did it. I kept my eyes on the floor. Couldn't look at Brianna's picture propped up near the casket. Couldn't look at my aunt, dressed in black from head to toe, face tight and pale except for the streak of mascara running down her cheek. My mom sat beside me, her hand on my knee, but her fingers were stiff. She hadn't defended me much since it happened, just enough to keep me from completely falling apart. Dad was gone, and she was all I had. But even she couldn't hide the disappointment in her eyes. When the preacher talked about Brianna's bright future, I wanted to scream. She'd barely had a chance to live, and I'd been the one to hand her the thing that snuffed her out. After the service, I stayed planted in my seat while the family lined up to follow the casket outside. I thought about slipping out the side door before the burial. But then I saw my aunt's eyes find mine. It was like she could kill me just by staring. She didn't have a clean life herself. Half the family could recite her rap sheet by heart: shoplifting, bad checks, public intoxication. But none of that mattered now. I was the villain, the one who'd taken her only daughter. When she passed me on her way out, she leaned close enough for me to smell the cigarettes on her breath and whispered, "I hope you rot." Her heels clicked away, and the rest of the family followed her lead. No one hugged me. No one spoke to me. By the time Mom and I got to the car, I was shaking. The ride home was silent except for the hum of the tires. Mom kept her eyes on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You could have been in that casket too, Tiff," she said finally, voice low. "And maybe that would have been easier for everyone." I didn't answer. There was nothing I could say that wouldn't make it worse. Chapter 3: Smoke and Static. The move didn't kill me, but it sure as hell finished off whatever was left of the old me. Mom remarried when I was 15, and within a year we were hauling everything across the country to start her new life. New husband. New house. New rules. New school. I didn't fit into any of it. I was the girl who showed up halfway through the year in clothes that didn't match the local style, talking with an accent that made everyone ask, "Where are you from again?" like it was a disease. Most days, I walked through those crowded hallways alone. No one sat next to me at lunch, not unless there was no other seat left. And when someone did talk to me, it was usually to size me up, decide if I was a threat or just another face to forget. Then I met Kara. She wasn't the kind of girl you planned to be friends with. She just kind of decided for you. Long dark hair, heavy eyeliner, and a permanent smirk like she'd been in on the joke before you even heard it. She introduced me to her crew, guys who skipped class to smoke behind the gym, girls with fake IDs who could get you into any dive bar within 20 miles. It started with beers, then shots, then weed. And before long, weed wasn't enough. There's something about holding that little glass pipe in your hand, feeling the heat build, and knowing you're about to drift so far from reality you won't care about anything. For a while, I didn't. But it wasn't all laughs and late nights. Fights started finding me. Maybe because I was new, maybe because I was pretty, maybe because I just didn't take crap from anybody. Jealous girls tested me, and I gave them exactly what they wanted. Hair-pulling, slaps, sometimes worse. One fight at a family reunion almost turned into a full-on brawl. My cousin Emily, one of my uncle's daughters, called me a slut in front of everyone. I saw red, and the next thing I knew, her hair was in my fist and we were knocking over a table full of potato salad. Mom was furious. After that, she started talking about rehab. "You need to get your act together, Tiff," she'd say, "or I'll put you somewhere you can't get high and fight people all day." I told her to relax. I was fine. But I wasn't. And by the time I was 21, I'd traded beer pong for nights in dimly lit bars, a pack of cigarettes in my purse, a joint behind my ear, and a craving for something harder. That's when I saw him. Leather jacket, black boots, tattoos that crawled up his neck. He leaned against the bar like he owned it, smirking at me over the rim of his beer. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew he was dangerous, and I wanted him. Chapter 4: The Man in Leather. The night I met Ryder, the bar smelled like smoke, spilled beer, and desperation. My kind of place. Kara and I had grabbed a corner table, working through a picture while some no-name cover band murdered a rock classic in the background. She was talking about some guy she'd hooked up with, but my attention kept drifting to the other end of the bar. That's where he was. Leather jacket, scuffed black boots, dark jeans clinging just enough to hint at muscle. Tattoos snaked up both arms and disappeared under his collar. His hair was greasy in a way that should have been gross, but on him it just looked dangerous. He caught me looking. Didn't smile, didn't wink. Just held my gaze, like he already knew how this night would end. When he finally pushed off the bar and walked over, the crowd seemed to part for him. "You smoke?" he asked. "No hi, no name." "Sometimes," I said, already knowing I'd say yes to whatever came next. "Come on," he jerked his head toward the door. "Got something better than this piss beer." Outside, the air was cold enough to make me shiver, but the joint between his fingers was warm when he passed it to me. I took a long drag, the smoke rough in my lungs. We leaned against my car, talking about nothing, music, bikes, the cops being all over the place lately. He stood close enough that the smell of leather and smoke wrapped around me. Then his hand slid to my waist. 1 second we were just standing there, the next his mouth was on mine, rough and hungry. My back hit the car door, his tongue in my mouth, his fingers curling into my hair like he owned me. I didn't stop him. I didn't want to. We ended up in the back seat, limbs tangled, heat building, until the knock on the window froze us both. Flashing lights. A uniformed cop grinning like he'd just caught the world's biggest joke. "Having fun, kids?" We got citations for public indecency and a good 15 minutes of harassment before they let us go. Ryder didn't seem fazed. Back inside the bar, he bought me a drink like nothing happened. "Name's Ryder," he said finally, like it was an afterthought. "Tiff," I told him. "Figures," he said, smirking. "You look like trouble." He wasn't wrong. Chapter 5: Baptism into the crew. Ryder didn't just hang out at the bar. He owned it in a way. Not on paper, but in presence. Everyone knew him. Bartenders slid him beers without asking. Women smiled too long, and men gave him nods that meant respect or fear, maybe both. It didn't take long before I was part of his orbit. The first time he took me to the shop, I thought we were going to some kind of garage. I was half right. It was a warehouse with 3 bikes torn apart on the concrete floor, tools scattered everywhere, and music blaring from a busted speaker. The air smelled like oil, weed, and sweat. "This is family," Ryder said, waving to the guys lounging around, tattooed, bearded, rough. They looked me over like I was a stray dog Ryder brought home. They didn't talk much at first, but they watched everything. I learned quick that Ryder's crew made their money doing favors no one could ask for in daylight. Boosting bikes, moving stolen parts, and sometimes other things. We smoked joints in the corner, played poker on an oil-stained table, and told stories about people I'd never meet but would never forget. It felt good, like belonging. One night, Ryder pulled me aside while the others argued over cards. "You know what's killing this city?" I shrugged. "Meth," he said. "Guys slinging poison to kids, wrecking families. Someone ought to do something about it." His eyes locked on mine, the corner of his mouth curling into that half-smirk. I knew this wasn't just small talk. "You ever hear of a guy named Lenny Marks?" he asked. "No. Big-time dealer. Keeps stacks of cash in his place. Doesn't even hide it 'cause he thinks no one's stupid enough to come for it." "And you are?" I asked. He grinned. "I'm not stupid. I'm smart. And I'm gonna ruin him." I should have walked away right there. Instead, I took another drag off the joint and said, "Tell me more." Chapter 6, The Job. Ryder made it sound simple. In and out. No noise, no drama. Just grab the cash and go. It was never going to be that simple. 2 nights later, I was in his truck, the engine rumbling low as we sat in the shadows across from Lenny Mark's place. It was a squat, single-story house with a fence half falling down and one dim porch light. Looked quiet. Too quiet. "You sure he's not home?" I asked. "Sure enough," Ryder said, checking the grip of the pistol at his waist. My stomach twisted. "You said no guns." "It's just for show," he said, smirking. "Don't go soft on me now." We hopped the fence, cutting through the weeds in the yard. The back door wasn't even locked. Lenny was cocky like that. Inside, the place smelled like stale smoke and chemical rot. Meth house stench. The cash was where Ryder said it would be, shoeboxes stacked in the bedroom closet. My hands shook as I stuffed wads of bills into a duffel. Then it all went to hell. A floorboard creaked behind me. I turned just in time to see a man in the hallway, shaved head, mean eyes, gun in his hand. Lenny Marks. "Who the hell?" he started, but Ryder was faster. A flash of metal, a deafening bang, and Lenny staggered back, clutching his side. Blood spread quick. My ears rang. I froze, staring at the dark pool growing on the floor. "Move," Ryder barked, grabbing the duffel from me. We bolted, the sound of Lenny's gasps chasing us out the door. Ryder gunned the truck down the street, tires squealing, engine howling. "You shot him," I said, my voice shaking. "He was gonna shoot us," Ryder snapped. "Besides, he's just another parasite. If he dies, the neighborhood's better off." I didn't answer. I kept seeing Lenny's eyes, the way they locked on me right before the gun went off. I knew then this wasn't just trouble. This was prison trouble. Chapter 7, Heat on the Street. The news hit hard and fast. Lenny Marks was in critical condition. Gunshot wound to the abdomen. Police saying it was a targeted attack. I tried to disappear. No calls. No texts. No bar nights. Just shadows and silence. But the city doesn't let you hide. A beat-up sedan kept appearing whenever I left the house. Parked 2 cars down, lights off. Always just watching. I told Ryder. He laughed it off at first, but the smile never reached his eyes. "They're onto us," he said one night, voice low in the dark garage where the crew met. "Cameras, DNA, cell records. This city's got eyes everywhere." I felt the weight of it crushing my chest. The thought that maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't get out of this. Mom called more often now, her voice cracked with worry and anger. "You need to turn yourself in before it gets worse." But how do you confess to a family that already hates you? Kara stopped answering my texts. I could almost hear the judgment through the silence. Ryder told me to keep quiet, lay low, and trust him. But trust was a fragile thing, cracking with every passing day. One night, I caught my reflection in the cracked mirror at the shop, a ghost with tired eyes and dirty skin. This wasn't the life I wanted. It was the life I was trapped in. Chapter 8: The Walls Close In. The interrogation room smelled like bleach and broken promises. I sat there, hands shaking, across from Detective Mills, cold eyes, sharper than the cuffs that would come later. "We know you were near the scene, Tiffany," he said, sliding a blurry security photo across the table. Me, caught on camera walking up to Lenny's house minutes before the shot. I tried to keep calm. Tried to say nothing. Ryder was slipping away too. No calls, no texts, just silence and shadowy threats. Kara warned me once more, "He's gonna drag you down. You need out." But I was already in too deep. Mom begged me over the phone to fight it, to come home. But home was a battlefield now, full of cold stares and whispered accusations. I watched my world crumble in real time, the walls closing in tighter every day. Chapter 9: Indictment. They came at dawn. Boots pounding the wooden floor, a battering ram smashing through the front door like it belonged to an enemy's fortress. I barely had time to blink before the room filled with shouts and barking orders. "Hands where we can see 'em." I didn't argue. What was the point? The evidence was stacked against me like a mountain waiting to bury me alive. DNA from the crime scene, security cameras catching my face, Ryder's own texts proving I was there, every scrap of tech the cops could find pointed straight at me. I felt cold steel lock around my wrists, biting into my skin as I was shoved into the back of a cruiser. The ride to the station was silent, except for the hum of the engine and the steady thump of my heart against my ribs. When they finally processed me, my mother was waiting. Her face was a storm, anger and heartbreak tangled together, tearing me apart worse than any jail cell ever could. She didn't say a word, just looked at me like I was both the daughter she loved and the daughter who'd broken everything. I wanted to tell her I was sorry, wanted to scream that I never meant for any of this to happen. But the words stuck in my throat. In that moment, surrounded by cold metal and harsh lights, I knew one thing for sure. There was no going back. Chapter 10: The Last Window. Jail was quieter than I expected. Just the hum of flickering fluorescent lights, distant shouts, and the occasional clang of metal doors. I sat on the cold cot, staring out the tiny barred window. It wasn't much, just a sliver of sky framed by rusted steel, but it was enough to remind me of what I'd lost. Memories played in my head like a broken film reel. Dad's laugh echoing down the hallways of our old house, Brianna's wild smile that night we tried meth, Ryder's dark eyes just before the shooting. I wondered if forgiveness was even possible. From my family, from the law, from myself. If I ever got out, I'd go back home. Back to the place where life had been simpler. Before drugs, before the robbery, before everything fell apart. But maybe some windows stay closed forever. The Guilt Trip Never Fades. The End. The Guilt Trip. By Duane Penmanship.